I was just about to ask you about how do you tackle binge eating, particularly in the current scenario where people are consistently living under stressful situations. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
So,
definitely.
and it's so understandable, isn't it? We're looking around for ways of soothing ourselves in this stressful environment, and often, so if we think of just focusing on binge eating as the coping strategy we're talking about, that's really a way of dealing with possibly emotions that are just feeling too overwhelming for you to sit down and process and look at. Possibly thoughts that you just don't want to go there, you know, because we're worrying about our futures, our livelihoods, all the people dependent on us, you know. It could be parents, it could be children, it could be friends, you know, people that we support in some way in our lives. And so a very close to hand, easily accessible coping strategy for that is food, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
You know, and the cheaper it is, the worse it is for us, and we can get our hands on it whenever. So you can look at it as a way of just trying to. So often I find with clients it's sometimes a way of trying to ground, just trying to feel solid again, because we spend so much time in our heads being very mental and thought focused, that we're trying to physically ground at the end of the day often. It could also just be a way of dealing with unspeakable emotions. It could be memories, it could be worries, it could be sensations, it could be pain, you know, so that can also be a way. It can be a way also, if we've talked about self-harm a little bit, it can also be a way of self-harming. So bringing yourself back into your body by creating a painful feeling in your stomach can also be a way of coming back into your body. So some people talk about binge eating as a way of directing anger that is at the world back inwards at ourselves. And creating kind of, it's really interesting because you know, depression is a similar thing. Often people talk about depression as anger at the outside going back in on yourself, because for some reason when something happened it wasn't safe to express it, so you have to deal with it somehow. So rather than it becoming that wasn't okay, you can't do that, it becomes there's something wrong with me, it's my fault, I'm not good enough, because there's something about our environment that doesn't allow us to voice the external problem. So you could think of overeating as a similar way of coping, dealing with the anger in a way you can control, which is by directing it at yourself.
Right. And I mean, just while we are talking on the binge eating as well, and I promise this is my last question. A lot of the times, particularly this actually interested me even when I was regularly doing clinics. People would come for weight loss and then they would go, I am exercising so much and I am doing this and that and I'm eating healthy, but I'm still not losing the weight. And you could see that it is the either they're highly stressed or there's some issues with depression or something around there, you know. And a lot of the times, I mean, I won't go as far as obesity, but probably you can include that as well. But a lot of times depression and obesity or overweight can go hand in hand. But there are studies that have not been able to determine whether there is a direct cause and effect relationship, or is it that or maybe that it could be it could cause depression, can cause weight gain, or weight gain could cause depression, something like either or. What would be your view on it?
I imagine that the cause could be either or. I imagine that the cause could be something that lowered your mood significantly, and then that changed your coping strategies, or it changed how well you were metabolizing your food, the two things probably. Or it could be something in your physiology has affected your hormones and your mood has gone down. So it must be both, you know. The possibility is that it's both. I mean, what I would say about food, our relationship with food, and how we manage our emotions with food is to try and shift it to seeing it as actually when I have the urge to binge eat, or if we're looking the other end of the spectrum, to not eat. It's because often people swing between the two, don't they? They could be anorexic for 5 years of their life, and they could overeat for 10 years, and they're swinging because it's about relationship with how they regulate their emotions through food.
Like eating disorders, not only just eating disorders.
And we have to wonder and be curious about eating disorders so compassionately, because our bodies are holding so much for us, and when we've been through something so difficult that it's changed our relationship with our body and our food, that's a very intimate thing, isn't it? And there's a lot of grief around that, because we're sometimes punishing our bodies or putting it through a lot of stress in order to cope with our experiences in the world. So I would say, the first thing to do if you find yourself using the food as a way of doing that is to notice when you have the urge not to eat or to eat, because it's the urge that's telling you something. It's saying, hey, you are stressed out. You are not happy today. What's happening for you today? Go back through your day. How was your morning? Did somebody say something? Did you take on that little bit too much today? Did you not say no when you should have said no? Be a detective about this urge comes up when I'm stressed and I'm not feeling safe. So use it like a detective. And then rather than giving into the urge, I mean, giving in is somehow saying there's something wrong with that. It could be a really adaptive thing to self-soothe in that moment. But rather than going down the kind of a behavioral road that you don't want to, a habit you'd love to break, think, what are the other ways I can soothe myself right now? Because the food gets me to a more relaxed feeling. How can I soothe my body? And it's about the body. Don't worry about the thoughts you're having. All of your emotions are in your body anyway. So how can I help this body that is dealing with so much all day? And I didn't even notice all of the small stresses that it was putting up with. Me not going to the toilet, staying at the screen for 3 hours, me not taking my lunch break, me not going for a little walk, all of this stuff that my body has to put up with, because I'm overriding it all day long. I'm overriding all of its urges and needs all day long. So what does it need from me right now? And that's where you start. Does it need fluffy pajamas? Does it need a hot water bottle? Does it need a hot chocolate? Does it need what? Because it probably doesn't need loads of Pringles and pizza and whatever. It just needs your attention, that you're interested and that you're noticing it. Because
it's again all back to the mindfulness, isn't it? And
it is, but it's also because, if we're not noticing and we're not interested and curious as to what it needs, we are also recreating possibly something that was abusive or difficult from our past, aren't we? We're shutting it out. We're saying no to it, and that pushes us out of our bodies even more. And I think difficult experiences push us out of our bodies to survive them. If you think of weight gain, for example, after birth, a lot of women find the whole experience of pregnancy is just taking over. This natural process is happening to them. And the experience of giving birth, again, your body's going to do it. There's only one way to get that baby out, isn't it? It has to happen. And a lot of our hospital systems see the woman as quite passive in that, actually. They even think you could be able to do it lying down on your back flat, when you've got so much sensation and pain. To be able to lie still on your back is just inconceivable in those moments. But again, that's a very extreme example of feeling pushed out of your body. because after you give birth, your body changes again, and women have to really build up a new relationship with that new body. And some women just don't, because it's too painful. There's the trauma around the birth, there's getting used to a new shape, and it can, again, that can be a stage where people get pushed out of their bodies and they start to gain weight, and it just keeps on going because they're no longer in relationship with their body.
Yeah. I think kind of your work on acceptance and commitment therapy, you know, that kind of might play a big role in these type of cases.
Yeah, it really does. You know, when you're talking about clients who are saying, God, I'm exercising so hard and I'm not eating, you know, in one way you have to really watch that, don't you? Because it could go from using food as a punisher to using exercise and diet as a punisher. And you're on such a tightrope as a therapist, because that's not what you want. You want them to change the relationship that they have with themselves. So it's coming from, you don't mind. I mean, who cares if you don't lose weight, if you are happy with yourself at the end of this process? Isn't that wonderful? You feel great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was a fascinating chat, Fodhla, and I hope you will come back again for another video, because I think I'm just feeling that we have so much more to discuss, and it was lovely having you over. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sohini. It was a pleasure. Really loved it. Okay.
Bye, everyone. So easy to talk to, and brilliant.